Okay, Chapter 1 gets us into Introduction to Security and what we have to look forward to. One, we're going to take a look at some of the challenges that security plays, some things that are important to know about what information security is, some common types of attacks, different steps that an attacker will take in order to get the information, and then the 5 basic principles of defense. So let's take a look at some of the challenges. So we talked about last class personal security, information security, and what it meant to us, the difference between the two, and how we need to secure information. And also some of today's security attacks, the advances in power. We talked about the GPU, the multi-GPU array allowed for faster password cracking. So another thing that Chris just brought up, I'm going to differentiate between Chris and Chris. We'll think about that. Is the fact that we have smartphones. We have a lot more of these mobile devices that are storing a lot of our personal information, and even corporate information. If this is a phone that I've connected to my corporate network. Did you know that if you connect your phone to a Microsoft Exchange email system, that Microsoft server, that email server, can wipe your device, can remotely, completely erase it and wipe it. Why? It's compromised. So theoretically, if it's a Microsoft Exchange server, only a business would implement something like that, right? So that Microsoft Exchange server, when you connected it, it asks to have permission to your system, right? You had to check that little box for those who've done it. I know some people are nodding their heads. And that's so if you do lose it, the company, some of their information is on that phone, right? In all the emails. So they can remotely send a signal to it that will wipe that phone, erase it completely. And we'll play around with that more in some more advanced computing classes. So smartphones becoming a new target. Police officers. Some police officers, some state have devices they can plug into your phone and copy the entire contents off of it and save it for evidence later. So there's that as well. So smartphones are definitely, what's that?
Don't ditch the gun, ditch the phone.
Yeah, don't ditch the gun. Hang on to that. You can carry that, right? You say, oh, I forgot my carry license. Okay, so some recent attacks that have occurred about a couple years ago, the bogus antivirus software used to try to convince people to give them credit cards. So in other words, it's a ransomware is another term that we call this. It's software that says, oh, you have 400 viruses. Click here to remove them. And you click there, and then it says, we're unable to remove 2 of them. You're going to need to call this number for assistance. And you call the number, and then the person in whatever foreign country, Nigeria or whatever, says, yes, we can do that. I need a credit card, though, because that's for the paid version of the app. You give them a credit card, and then they charge it however much, $34.95 or whatever. And then the message clears the screen, and your computer is supposedly ready to go and ready to be cleaned off, whether there were viruses there or not. Now, that takes us to the next step. They now have your credit card and all your information. Now they can use it to charge up whatever they want until they get caught, and then they change names, move into the building next door, and start up the whole process all over again with a whole new name. So those issues. Online banking attacks, hacking contests. I talked about this one. The Nigerian 419 advanced free fraud, number 1 type of internet fraud. That's that Nigerian, I have a cousin that just inherited a bunch of money. I need to transfer it out of the country, into your account, and sure enough, some people who've done it, their account gets filled up with thousands and thousands of dollars. And then I can't remember exactly how it's done, because if I did, I'd be doing it myself, right? Then I think somehow they transfer money back into a different account. So they usually kind of a money laundering, and they take even more money out or something. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Chris, you had something?
Yeah, there's another one going on right now, actually, in our area. Targeting the elderly, calling in about, oh, such and such your grandson was murdered. This last
Oh
one was
yeah,
in-
I've heard about that one.
The one was, kid was in Bolivia or something, was in a car wreck and
Playing on human sympathy. Yep. Yeah. So be wary of who's calling asking for information.
I think I had that happen only it was over an email. Someone sent me an email saying they were trying to get out of the country and they needed to transfer money into a bank account.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't get this at all, and I deleted it.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I've come close, and then sometimes it dupes me enough to go, okay, wait a minute, and then I back up. One interesting, just recent call, a phone call that was made. I ordered about $8,000 of stuff on Amazon to order equipment and the TVs and stuff we're doing for a class here, and that's not a normal behavior in my account. I normally don't order that much. So, of course, it flagged Amazon, and they go, oh, something's going on. What happened? Did the kid get a hold of the one-click purchase thing? So they, of course, called me up, and some guy with a foreign accent said, hello, this is so-and-so from Amazon. I need to verify what you ordered on Amazon yesterday. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what I ordered on Amazon. I go, how do I know you are from Amazon? How do I know what you're going to do with this information? I'm not going to give it to you. And he goes, well, we need to verify to make sure it wasn't a fraudulent charge and that you actually need the equipment. I go, the information I order, or the stuff I order on Amazon, I need. I go, I'll tell you this much, it was a very large purchase, larger than it normally is, and I do want it. And then he started reading off specific information about what I ordered. And I said, yes, that is correct. So I wasn't just going to randomly tell him what information I ordered on Amazon. What could they do with it? I don't know. Some people might be like, who cares if you tell me you ordered a TV? But some of that information, like you're going to learn when you start reading this book, Art of Deception, a lot of it can be added up with other things that can be used to take advantage of you and exploit something for you. They could use that information to call my wife and say, hey, your husband told me to call, said he just ordered that TV for you. I need another credit card because it didn't work. And my wife would be like, oh, yeah, okay, you talked to my husband. Good. Okay, yeah, he did order TVs and give a credit card out, right? So, it can be used against you. Fire sheep. We talked about fire sheep, right? Pretty awesome. It was so cool to see that. I have a couple other tools we're going to try to play with. I'm going to try to play with it ahead of time, and we'll demonstrate them in here. Malware. We know what malware is, right? Malicious software that's installed on a computer, or it gets installed. That's maybe a Trojan horse. So all these terms we'll talk about here later on. Infected USB flash drives. A lot of universities and places did tests. They gave out free. Somebody stood in the Gideons handing out the Bibles. They stood in the parking lots and handed out, here, free USB drive. There's a little marketing name on it, like, Joe's Crab Shack or whatever. Handing it out and like, oh, cool, free flash drive. I can use these little jump drives. They bring them into the company's network, and they plug them in. And it looks like an empty drive. Like, cool, I can throw stuff on there. The moment they plugged it in, a little program ran in the background, just like when you plug in those SanDisk ones and other ones that load the extra CD. It looks like a CD, right? So that's what happened. And it loaded, and it actually, I think maybe National Geographic or someplace did these. And it actually recorded which computers it recorded. So this computer plugged it in, this one, this one, this one. So the computer essentially reported to a central place saying, yep, it's plugged in, so they could identify which computer's plugged in. So keep in mind, or they'll just stick a flash drive on the ground by a car. And you go out to your car and you go, oh, look at that, the free flash drive someone lost. Stick it in your pocket, and what do? You stick it in and use it. Try to snoop around, see what's in it. Warning, warning, warning. Careful. And so all those tricky things you can do. What do we used to get in the mail from AOL? Floppy drives to run the AOL service. Some of you might not remember this, but some of us do. Or CDs, maybe. Okay, the next generation up. So, yeah, so what do? We get it, go, yay, AOL. And we think it's AOL on there, but it could be something else. We plug it in the computer, and sure enough, we have issues. So here's just a list of some of the security breaches that have been recorded and how many identities have been stolen or lost. So there's Grays Harbor, Tulane University, 10,000 of their student records and employee records were lost. Here's one, DeviantArt. DeviantArt is a website where you can upload your own art that you make with GIMP or with Photoshop, like weird stuff. 13 million email accounts and birth dates were exposed, lost. This is not even the latest. This is an old list. Ohio State University.
Isn't it Sony got hacked?
Sony. Well, as I told you, I have the LinkedIn database on my laptop that I found that was published out there by Anonymous. So just think of all of these. Anybody have any other information on any of these locations?
Probably the DeviantArt one.
Yeah, you have some stuff down there in our account you created.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your information was taken. So that's why they say don't use the same password on every single site. Use different passwords. So if the password you use for DeviantArt was compromised, big deal. They have my email address. I get more spam. Thanks a lot. Birthday, send me a card. Great. So, I mean, some of it is good, some of it's not. You know, so it is what it is. And as you can see, this is an old list. There's even more today. Difficulties in defending against different attacks. All of these devices that are connected together to increase the speed in the attacks. Just the fact of saying that I can, the anonymous group liking to attack or hack into something and then publish it. They go, hey, look at this, guys. But some of those sometimes can be good. For an example, Firesheep. That example using Firesheep to see all the Facebook profiles and how easy it was. What did it do? It forced Facebook to use HTTPS. It forced them to turn that on. It forced other social media services to turn HTTPS on and keep it on. Not just during the initial login process, because that's what Facebook did. When you first logged in, it was encrypted, and then they went back to an unencrypted session. But that session key, that session ID, was used to replay or pretend that I am that person, and I'm able to access all the information they have. So other difficulties, delays in patching, this Java exploit that just went on recently. The U.S. government saying that the vendors of the product, the web browsers that are using Java aren't updating fast enough, so they suggested just turn Java off. And I think in Safari it's turned off by default on the newer version of Safari. So if you browse using Safari and there's Java, it'll pop up a thing saying, hey, do you want to run Java on this website? And you have to actually click yes if you want to. And that was before this Java exploit even happened. And then, of course, user confusion. This one got my wife quite a few years ago when she had a Windows laptop. It popped up and said, Windows or XP virus program detected that you have X number of viruses. You know, click here to clean. She's like, oh yeah. Aaron says I always got to, make sure my virus is up to date and I clean them. So she clicked the link, which is the link on a web page, and sure enough, infected her computer even more to the point where I spent a couple hours trying to clean it, and I was like, oh, the heck with it. We'll back up your data and we'll start all over from scratch. So users, just basic users, just think of your slight confusion on all of these things that are happening out there, trying to keep up with them. Imagine just somebody that all they do is just, they have an Android phone because they bought one, get one free at US Cellular, and they have a computer at home because it's nice to be able to browse Facebook on a computer every now and then. And all the things that they can get duped into. the links they click on Facebook, the information they're giving away.
I'm just looking at Facebook. I don't even have ours.
Yeah, it's all on Facebook. I trust Facebook. Look at all my friends that are on it, and yeah, it can be sad. So, information security. What's that?
That commercial about the well, it's on the internet. It can't be. It can't be.
It's gotta be true. It's
Oh, it's got to be true.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
So before defense is possible, you need to understand what our assets are. What is information security? What's important to us? What do we need to protect? And we need to identify who the attackers are. Who is trying to either destroy the data, gain access to the data, or gain access to our assets. Our assets can be very clearly and very easily identified as our employees. And who's the attacker? The flu virus. That is information security. I need to keep my employees healthy, to keep them coming to work. My employees are my assets. So don't just think of information security as being I install a firewall or I protect my passwords by encrypting them. That's a small part. You got to think broader about what is information security, and think about all the aspects of what keep this organization running. What do we need? Yes.
So you should hand out those masks and put personal firewall on it.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea, right? Head out mask, personal firewall, written on the mask. That's clever. Yeah. My battery's going dead on my remote. All right, so what is security? The security is the steps that we take to keep ourselves from getting harmed, or keep whatever we need to protect from being harmed or destroyed, right? And then information security is guarding the digitally formatted information, no matter what state it is in. A state of rest, meaning on the hard drive, stored, or on backup tapes. A state of transit, flowing through the network. Okay, so there's different states that network that our information security is in, that we have to make sure that each state that it's in is going to be secured. So how do we do that? Well, we define information security in a triangle. Call this the CIA triangle. Confidentiality. And there I grabbed another marker that's not used. Here we go. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The goal is we can't have, if we change the increase of confidentiality, we're going to have to change the increase of availability. And we're going to have to change the increase of integrity. So we have to keep them all equal and keep them all under the same level of protection. We want to keep our data, our information confidential. Keep it so only the people that need to see it can see it. We want to make sure that our information is available, that the people who do need to see it can see it, and it's not a difficult process for them to gain access to it. Because if it is, then I increase the time it takes for me to do the job, which means it costs more money for my organization to run. And then integrity of our system or our information, our digital information is this information, has it been changed? Is it corrupted? Are the backups that we ran, are they good? Are we going to be able to restore from them if we need to? So the integrity, the availability, and the confidentiality of our information are things that we want to use in order to ensure that our data is going to be safeguarded. So how do we do that? We protect it using these three things. The three A's, AAA. And even when we're configuring Cisco routers, the AAA is an actual command that you use when you're configuring these levels of security. So the AAA is authentication, identifying that you do have access to the information you need, that we authenticate you and ensure that you are who you say you are, and you're not some bad guy that cut the eye out of our top scientist and is using it to pass through the retinal scanner, right? Right? We've seen those movies. Authorization, identifying who is authorized to access this information. So we verified that you are Joe. And Joe, you are part of our system, that's great. But do you have access to the information that you're looking for? Yes or no? And that is depending upon us deciding whether or not Joe can see that information. So is it available? That's authorization. And then accounting. Who accessed this data and when? Keeping an audit trail of what has happened. So, did somebody make a copy of this file? Well, if they authenticated as somebody, and that somebody has availability to that data, did they change it or copy it? I don't know. That's where accounting comes into play. And accounting, even though you copy a file, you can't tell when you look at the file if it's been copied or not. But you have an audit trail, an accounting trail that shows that this file has been accessed. Modern operating systems today do have that little bit of information stored in the file. When the file was last modified, when it was created, and when it was last accessed. Modern OSs can record that information. Look that up on your computers at home or even here on the Macs. They all should have that information. See if you can find it.
Go into properties, usually it's right in there.
Usually when you take a look at the properties of the file, you should be able to see those 3 dates and times. So you can see last time it was accessed. So here they give us the spheres of security. So there's our information. We protect it. Cody, you got to keep reminding me to use my laser. We have our information that's inside, right? This concept of levels of security goes back to the medieval ages. We built castles, right? In the castles, we kept the king in the center of the castle, right? And in the castle, we had the common area outside the castle, the walls, and then we had the moat, and then we have the farmlands that surrounded, or the village that surrounded the castle, and then we had the farmlands outside of the village, and they had the little rock mounds for fences. So we had several layers that the enemy had to go through in order to get to the information or to our protected asset. So this concept works here in layers, like Shrek and onions, right? So information, we have confidentiality, integrity. So all 3 of these things are in place to keep our information secure. And then we implement communications, policies, rules. This is what you can and cannot do. We implement hardware, devices that are going to protect it, and software, how it's configured to protect it. And then we identify products, physical products. What is that a picture of?
Dell computer.
I don't know what the heck that is. That looks like a little like audio recording set. And people, personnel, security, and then procedures, organizations on what is allowed. For example, on a basic policy, organization security, tailgating. What is tailgating?
Following someone.
Following someone through. So if I use a card swipe to get into a room and the door closes behind me, then the next person is supposed to use their card and swipe it in. Why? What part of that, it's not on the screen, but what part of what we just talked about on the last screen does it do when we have to swipe every single time?
Authenticates.
Authentication and accounting. It's keeping track, it's auditing. Who went into this room at this time? It's keeping an audit trail. Tailgating would be someone that just kind of snuck in, go swipe it for us, and we'll all walk in as a group. Right? We're not recording who has gone in to this lab. I wanted to do that for this lab because there is no lab assistant that sits in here all the time. I wanted to have each one of you guys have your own card swipe so we could always keep the door locked. And you could always come in here. but it would record then who's coming in to the lab, right? So, but they didn't want to do it. They thought it would be too hard. The availability would be difficult. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Voice recognition.
I'll keep trying. Yeah, maybe I'll just buy my own system. What was that one deadbolt lock thing that you could put on?
Oh,
We could do something like that. Yeah.
You just kind of touch it. And it's just
Yeah, we could do something like that. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll play around.
I mean, you could just do
Do it to the back.
it on that door, and then just have your students come through that door and shut that.
Yeah, we could do something. I don't know. I'll probably get myself in more trouble. I don't need to do that.
Door.
So, we kind of already talked about that. Come on, remote. Okay, so information security terminology. Some terminology that we need to understand. An asset. An item of value. What are some assets here in this classroom? Computers are one. What else?
My
Information.
Huh?
Your personal information.
Like what? Give me something physical I can understand.
Something like your servers back there.
A server's back there. What else is an asset?
The instructor.
The instructor. What we have to do is think about, serious. What we have to do is think about what is an asset. Well, first we have to know what is the business. What do we ultimately want? What is our goal? We want to have a classroom that has a learning environment that we can produce learned students. So an asset would be the students, the instructor, the computers. If we didn't have those, coffee maker might be an asset, but it's going to be low on the list of assets, right? It is, truly, it is. It can be an asset. Okay? This remote, is it an asset? Yeah. But do I need to safeguard this and put it into a lockbox? No. No. So yes, that would secure it, but it would make it kind of inaccessible. But it's still an asset that we need to consider. Okay? So an asset is anything, an item of value that will prevent us from doing what we need to do in our organization. And then the threat now. The threat is the actual action or event. What's a threat to me as an asset to this classroom?
Bonnie.
Bonnie could be. She's threatened me a few times.
Just once or twice.
Could use frustration. You got administration. You got guidelines and rules that you have to follow.
Yeah, administration and things, I guess, that I have to follow that would prevent me from doing certain types of things in the classroom that I want to do that would create a positive learning activity or environment. It's kind of a loose one.
If the coffee pot
Even a
breaks.
student can use that.
What's that?
If the coffee pot breaks.
I got coffee at home, but yeah, it's
We lost
You also gotta
electricity.
think about the unexpected ones. Let's say stray bullet. Say someone 5 miles down the road.
stray bullet, right? The big yellow bus.
Yeah, big yellow bus.
Big yellow bus.
Anything unexpected.
The flu virus.
Tornadoes.
Tornadoes.
Transformer goes on.
Snow. Snowy roads.
Spiders.
Right?
Banana
So what do we do? So what do we do to mitigate that? Like, for example, snowy roads. What do we do to mitigate that to ensure that instruction still goes on here even though we have snowy roads?
Plow.
We plow the roads, right? And that's part of our government services that we allow.
Snow days.
Have built-in snow days. Okay, we don't do that here at the college.
Stop and tell the cop how bad the damn road was last night.
Skype, video conferencing, right? Email, alternative lesson plans that we can implement. So, next thing is the threat agent. The threat agent is the person or the device or the natural disaster that delivers the threat to our asset. You know, the threat agent could be the guy in the hat and the trench coat, right? I think that's the image they put in the book, if I remember right.
That's stereotyping.
What's that?
So that's stereotyping.
It is stereotyping. It's bad, right?
Oh.
Stopped 2 times this year.
Were ya?
Because I own a long coat.
It's a long
It's
trench
not
coat.
even a long coat. I'm just short.
Ah,
Is that what you told him?
Actually, yeah, one of my coats is really long on me because I am short.
yeah. Oh.
And I went to the movies and they asked if I was carrying concealed weapons. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't even answer. I just went,
Wow. You went in
Dumb
there?
question.
Yeah.
A movie.
You could tell them if you had a permit to carry.
Wow.
Did they ask anyone with the coat or
No,
just you?
just me.
Oh, okay.
They literally picked me out after I sat down, brought me out into the lobby, asked me, they're like, you're kidding. right?
That's annoying.
Yeah, that's not good.
Well, with how many times it's happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't with the long trench coat though. He was dressed up as the Joker. So I can understand if people were dressed in costume for the movie, asking them, "Do you have any weapons on you?" But not just somebody in a trench coat, unless they're asking everybody with a coat.
Trench coats that have
Did they ask
shine.
everybody with a handbag and everyone with a coat?
No, and what's worse was it was a Rocky Horror Show. There were a lot weird people working.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, some more terminology.
Alright.
A vulnerability. Vulnerability is a flaw or weakness that can be taken advantage of. Okay? And then this one is important. Risk. The likelihood of something actually occurring. What is the risk of a tornado? Should we all be locked in cement bunkers? No. Because the likelihood of a tornado occurring is minimal. And when it does occur, we have steps to take that we can protect ourselves, hopefully. Right? So the likelihood of something happen, can someone hack into through my firewall and get into my server? Yes, they can. What is the likelihood of it happening? Not that great. So should I concern myself every single day checking my firewall logs and updating the software on it and spend 2 hours a day ensuring that this occurs? No. Should I do that every month? Maybe, yes. Okay? So that's where we identify the risk. What is the risk of this threat actually occurring? And those are things that we need to take a look at. And we can assume that some degree of risk we're going to have to accept. Where if, what's an example? To protect this asset, it's going to cost us $30,000 to protect it. To implement all the controls, all the devices, all the software, the manpower in order to protect it. But this device is only worth $1,000. Is it worth spending $30,000 to protect an asset worth only $1,000? No. So that's where, I mean, that's an extreme example, but that's where we have to identify, is it worth losing? And how often, how frequent are we going to lose this asset to a threat? And then we identify, well, can we replace it? Yes. Is it cheaper to replace it when it occurs? Yes. All my routers and switches back there cost so much a year, about $100 to $200 a year to protect in case they fail through whatever reason. They get stolen, they get broken, they have a software flaw in them, or a hardware flaw, and I can return them to Cisco and get new ones. Or I can not pay that every year, and if it does occur, I just pay the cost of replacing that one device. So you have to take that in consideration, because one device I can replace for anywhere from $500 to $1,000. How many devices do I have? A lot. I have 12 in each enclosure. So take that times, $100 to $200 a device, as opposed to just spending $1,000 every couple of years to replace a broken whatchamacallit or whatever. So it's those kind of things that you have to think about when you want to implement security. You don't just implement security because you go, wow, it's common practice that we should implement a firewall. Well, which firewall do we implement? So here's just a nice little image. We're going to go past that. All right. Options to deal with risk. We can either accept the risk, saying, yep, tornadoes happen. Too bad. They don't happen that much. We'll just accept that. If it does happen, there's other things that we got to deal with. And then we'll just put back together what gets destroyed. We can diminish or reduce the risk by taking steps like having a brick home as opposed to a wood home or a pole shed. What's that?
An underground house.
Or an underground house. Okay, so we can reduce the risk of, if there is a tornado, is our house just going to fly away because it's made out of flimsy wood or pole shed, aluminum or siding, or we're going to have it built out of solid brick and so forth. So we diminish it, or we can transfer the risk. We can buy insurance. So if it does get destroyed, all this money we've been paying into the insurance company, we can hopefully get most of it back to replace the device. It's like a little savings account. What's that?
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Is the insurance company there because they're your friend?
No.
They're there because they are playing a gambling game. They're saying, I'll bet you this person, or we won't have a tornado and I won't have to cover the house if it gets destroyed. So yeah, we'll cover your house in case there's a tornado. Pay us so much a month. And they collect this money.
Only 10% of those are gonna ever have to be collected on, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
make more money than that.
Yep. Can you own a house and not have house insurance?
If you own it all yourself,
Yep. If you own it, not all yourself, but own a certain percentage of what you owe on it.
I think you have to, they don't, the bank I think.
You have to own the whole 100%.
I'm
Has to be
pretty
yours. Yeah.
sure.
So if a bank has a loan that they've given you, borrowed you money in order to buy your house, they require you that you have to have and provide evidence of insurance on that house, because that's their asset that they're trying to protect.
But even buy a car now, you take car insurance.
Yep, that's a law by the
state law.
government,
Yeah.
the state law that says that, because then that reduces the amount of lawsuits and other things that could occur in case someone doesn't have insurance. But then they still don't have insurance, right? And then your insurance company has got to pay, and then they rack up your insurance because the person that hit you doesn't have insurance.
Right.
It's your fault. You're supposed to steer clear of them. Okay, keep going. Preventing data theft. Well, we can secure often associated with the security often associated with this is theft prevention, business data theft, getting proprietary information, research and development information, and then of course credit card numbers. How many? Let me ask this question: how many feel safer handing their credit card to a waiter or waitress at a restaurant over using a credit card on Amazon or Newegg?
I feel safer at Amazon.
You feel safer on Amazon and Newegg?
I don't trust those damn people. Who knows what they're doing back there?
Exactly. Who knows what that waiter or waitress is doing with your credit card? They're gone for like 10 minutes.
Or your food for that.
Well, that's a whole nother issue and level of risk you take, right? I want really good food, but somebody might spit in it.
Personally, I wouldn't trust either, but then again, there's also ways around that. With like Google Play, I will not put my credit card number in there. I don't see the reason for it, and the Google terms or licensing agreement isn't very nice if you actually read it all the way through,
Okay.
because they own all the information you give them. So I get a Google Play card from Walmart.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
The
A lot of times those terms, just so you know, not that I'm protecting Google, but those terms sometimes are for legal purposes. They need to state that they own it so they can use your credit card in their processes and storing them on their servers. Because if they store it on their servers, they're going to be storing in multiple places because they have multiple data centers, right? So they have to be able to own that in order to store it. Otherwise, it's your information, and now they possess it. Then that would be against the law for them to possess. So yeah, but yeah, that's a great idea. A lot of people who use credit cards on the internet have a PayPal account, so they're trusting still one entity, but they get a temporary credit card number to use from PayPal, a one-time use credit card, and use those. So there's a lot of solutions. You can get a prepaid card, right? It's not linked to anything. You just got to remember, it's just, again, it's extra work on your part to have to buy the Google Play card. It's getting low. Oh, I need to stop and buy another Google Play card.
People are lazy.
But then, you know who else owns your credit card information now? Walmart, where you bought that card.
Yeah,
So
they've had it for
you're kind of
years.
stuck between a rock and a hard place.
They've always had
They've
it.
had it for years.
And so what's interesting is, you know, the little member cards or the things you put in your keychains every time you go to Dick's Supermarket or Piggly Wiggly or whatever, or PetSmart. Yeah, they don't need that. If you use your credit card, they've already got your information and they know exactly your buying habits. You know who does that? Target. And actually, a gal who was 16 or 17 years old, living at home still with her parents, used her credit card to buy things at Target, right? So she went to Target and she bought a pregnancy test.
Oh, joy.
And guess what came in the mail A few months later,
Baby stuff.
a Target card and baby stuff, or Target catalog, and other baby advertisements. And Dad was like, what's going on here?
That's how it happened with us with Parenting Magazine.
Yeah, it just shows up, right? The hospital gives that stuff away. Gives your information away to Parenting Magazine. So, just the fact that she got a pregnancy test, Target assumed that she was probably more than likely pregnant, and they sent that information. So, all that information, there's a lot of it out there. It's amazing. It's scary. What's that?
I said Target before Daddy did.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the story. You can Google it and get the exact date and time that happened in more detailed info. But yeah, that just happened not too long ago.
That's pretty screwed up.
Using another person's information in an unauthorized manner, usually for financial gain. This is stealing your identity. This happened to my wife when we went to go buy a house. A few years prior to that, someone used her identity, opened up a utility account in California, and never paid on it. So we were denied our home loan until we had to clear that up before we could buy it. We had to prove our innocence. So a lot of this information can be stolen and accessed. Social Security numbers. You'd be surprised. Start searching for Social Security numbers on the internet. You find lists of them. But sorry for some of those peoples. I think it was the Department of Veterans Affairs actually had a lot of them published on the internet by accident. And once it's on the internet, it's cached and there forever. So yeah, it's scary. Legal consequences. We have a lot of laws and acts in place now to hopefully try to protect our information while it's in transit or storage. One of them with the hospitals and clinics is HIPAA. Usually every time you go to the clinic, or every year at least, you have to sign a HIPAA agreement stating that they can use your information and they won't share it with anyone without your consent and so forth. So I can't even call on behalf of my wife and ask for something at the clinic. It won't work. They have to talk to her specifically. Or she has to fill out an agreement that says this person is allowed to call and request information on my behalf. Things like that. And those laws are in place to protect you. They're a pain in the butt and annoying because it makes it harder to access the information, but they're there to help us. Sarbanes-Oxley, the Grams-Leach-Bliley Act, and then that's the California Database Security Breach Notification Act that I talked about last class, where they're supposed to notify anybody if a company resides in California and their information's been breached. They're supposed to notify all their customers. Let's take a look at taking a break, and we'll come back and talk about the rest of chapter 1.